Holy Spirit, when we look upon those in need around us, may we be moved with pity, and may we show them mercy as we ourselves have been shown mercy. Amen. In our story this morning from Luke, the lawyer gives the right answer. The lawyer is correct. He gets an A+ in practical theology. He gets an A+ in hermeneutics or biblical interpretation. The lawyer nails it. He was probably a very good student when he went to Bronze Age law school. He probably got straight A's and did very well. He may have graduated with honors with the kind of answers this guy can give. And Jesus acknowledges it. You've given the right answer. Well done. Go do that, and you will live. But the lawyer, like anyone, wants to justify himself. We as human beings are actually amazing at justifying ourselves. We're not very good at acting justly. We're not very good at doing the right thing. But we are incredible at explaining what we do to ourselves afterwards and justifying the things we do and the things we say and the things we believe. We are incredibly good at this. I mean, think about it. Every horrible thing you can imagine, every absurd and ridiculous action or belief, every irrational response probably seemed justified to the people doing it. Almost no matter how ridiculous or how terrible, if you sat a person down, they could probably explain to you, especially after the fact, why they did what they did. There are thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands by some estimates, who believe the earth is flat. They're called flat earthers. They have regional conventions where they discuss the flat earth. And every single one of them could justify that belief to you. There are YouTube videos. There are people who speak on the topic of the flat earth. People who commit genocide do so because it makes sense to them. And if you sat them down and you asked them why they did one of the most horrific things we can imagine, they would be able to justify that act to you. They could give you their reasons, and to them, the reasons probably seem very compelling. There's a growing number of people in the United States who think that women's suffrage was a bad idea. It comes up in articles periodically. A woman was dating a guy for a while, and after a bit, he reveals to her that he doesn't believe women should be allowed to vote. And I'm sure that he has superb justifications for this belief. I mean, on an extreme example, cannibalism makes perfect sense to cannibals. I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a new comedy special by the comedian Aziz Ansari. Has anyone seen this comedy special yet? Good. So I'm going to spoil a little bit of it. Not that it's good you haven't seen it, it's a decent comedy special, especially if you like his previous comedy. But I'm going to spoil a little bit of it, but he gives an example of what I'm talking about it was just too good, I have to steal it. So Aziz is on stage, and he's in his comedy special, and he mentioned something that was in the news recently. So apparently what happened, it was kind of the edge of the news, it made it into social media, and that kind of thing. It wasn't like on the front page or anything. But apparently, a person ordered a pizza, and they had the pizza delivered to their house, and when they opened the pizza, it was a nice pepperoni and cheese pizza, they opened the pizza, and it looked like to them that the little pepperonis were arranged in a shape reminiscent of a swastika. Right, so they were very upset, okay? And so they took a picture of the pizza, they called the pizza place and complained, and the picture of this pizza and the story began to spread. And so, predictably, the internet rose up on both sides of this issue. There are people who ardently claim that's obviously a swastika, fascism is on the rise, this is the world we live in now, this is terrible. There are other people who are like, look, it's a pizza, it has pepperoni on it, you're playing connect the dots, this clearly isn't a swastika, you guys are snowflakes, you're out of control. So Aziz asked his audience, to those of you who saw this picture of the swastika pizza, clap if you thought it looked like a swastika, and there's some applause in the audience. And then he said, okay, for those of you who saw the swastika pizza picture, clap if you thought that's not a swastika, you're just being too sensitive. And there's more applause. So he picked someone who was applauding. He's like, okay, you, sir. You clapped, you said it didn't look like a swastika. The guy's like, yeah, I don't think it. So Aziz says, okay, now there were two pictures of this pizza. There was one published by the New York Times and one published by the Washington Post, and there's a rumor that the Washington Post one might have been digitally altered. So did you see the Washington Post pizza or the New York Times pizza? The guy's like, I think it was the Washington Post pizza. Aziz is like, great, okay, got it. You know what's amazing about that story? Never happened. There was no swastika pizza. Did not occur. And the point that he makes is that in every city where he does his comedy show and mentions the swastika pizza story, people still clap. Yeah, it was definitely a swastika. I saw that pizza. And other people clap when they say, no, that wasn't a swastika pizza. You guys are being ridiculous. And he really embarrasses this guy who was clapping. But his point is that we have these snap decisions. And he says to the rest of the people in the audience, you guys aren't off the hook, because this whole time you were thinking, how did I miss this swastika pizza story? I read the New York Times, how did I miss this swastika pizza? I wish they weren't allowed to have their phones, but they were wishing they had their phones and could Google swastika pizza. So the point of telling this story is to reveal something about human nature. We are good at justifying things to ourselves. One of the ways we do this is with a snap judgment about something, because it fits the preconceptions that we have, or conversely, because it violates the preconceptions that we have. So some people in the audience thought fascism was on the rise. I can totally picture a swastika pizza. I'm already getting angry about it. I can see the pizza in my mind. I clap. Other people are thinking people are too sensitive these days. They can't take a joke. These social justice warriors are looking for any reason to complain. This is another example of them going crazy. There's no way. I can picture the pizza in my mind, and there was no swastika. When in reality, there was no pizza. It was all entirely made up. Deep down, in our hearts of hearts, we already know who our neighbors are. We may or may not share our beliefs about who our neighbors are. We definitely already know. It's not a mystery. We know well enough that we can make these kinds of snap judgments most of the time. Like, we know who's us. We just have a feeling about it that we can justify to ourselves and justify to others any number of ways. And we know who is them. And we have good reasons for remembering that they are them. We're us. And if asked in a moment of honesty and vulnerability, every one of us could explain the excellent reasoning we have behind that belief of who's in and who's out. Even if we're not clear consciously on this idea of who our neighbor is, because we might kind of hide it from ourselves. If you watch someone's life, you can absolutely figure out who their neighbors are and who their neighbors are not. Just watch. Who do they respond to? Who do they reject? Who do they reach out to? Who do they close off? And you can tell, before much time has passed, who they believe their neighbors are. There are situations where we will immediately believe something negative. Like that is the most delicious gossip. When someone tells you something about somebody, and you just know it's true. And how often do you go seeking extra evidence to support or disprove gossip that you hear? Not very often, maybe sometimes. A lot of the time, it just rings true. You know what? Yeah, that person would do that. That's who they are. That's on the personal level, a snap decision. We do the same thing on a societal level with things as silly or potentially inflammatory as a swastika pizza, even when they're made up. But we see a headline go across our social media feed, or we hear about a story, or we hear someone talk on cable news, and we immediately know, yeah, that's right. That's what those people are doing. That's what they're about. And we just have this gut reaction. We know who our neighbors are. Down to our bones, we know. I'd like you actually to take a moment. Now try to think of the people or the groups that you would immediately believe something negative about. Without having to look into it further, without needing to check the facts and do your research, you would just have that gut feeling. Maybe in the past few weeks, you've had that gut feeling. You've heard something negative about someone, and it felt right. Or you've seen a negative story about a person or a group you already don't like, and it just rang true. Because the best way to let you check out right now is to start listing things. Because some of you will agree and think you have great reasons, and others won't agree and think it's a crazy example who would think that. But everyone in here, I think, has an idea of who their neighbors are and who they are not. And one way you can tell is that snap judgment. Who would you believe the worst about? That's not your neighbor. The lawyer, seeking to justify himself, asks Jesus a question, and it's a reasonable question. If I have to love my neighbor as myself, I've got to know who my neighbor is. I've got to know who I have this responsibility to. But he's probably not asking it in total honesty and curiosity. There's something in his mind, just like for us. There's something in the back of his mind saying, oh, God, I hope my neighbor isn't that person over there. I hope my neighbor isn't this group. I have every good reason not to help those people. They don't deserve it. And so, seeking to justify himself, he asks. Jesus, I was interested to note as I reread this story, doesn't actually answer that question at all. The lawyer asks a question of, who is my neighbor? And in response, Jesus tells a story. He tells a story about a man traveling on a famously dangerous road. The road from Jerusalem to Jericho. We know from the time, from other sources, it was, if you're going to be attacked by bandits, that's the road. Right? There's a lot of trade going back and forth, and people were robbed. Maybe not constantly, but regularly. It had a reputation of a dangerous, and also, to Jesus' audience, a familiar road. Is the equivalent of going to the wrong side of town, the equivalent of being in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. And everyone's going to go, oh man, Jerusalem to Jericho. Yep, I'm with you, Jesus. As the story continues, we have some examples of the pure and the powerful crossing by on the far side and not intervening to help this person. As you may have been told in previous sermons, if a priest or a Levite went to help someone who was injured and bleeding and had open wounds, they would become unclean. And there'd be this whole process they had to go through to be re-cleansed before they could go back to doing what they do, doing their jobs. And so they pass by on the other side. And then a Samaritan comes along. And in Jesus' audience, you can picture them going, oh, a Samaritan. We don't like them. As you may have heard in other sermons, the Judeans and the Samaritans didn't like each other. They were like close family that just didn't get along. They were neighbors, physical neighbors, but they weren't theological neighbors. They weren't political neighbors. And so they fought, they scrapped, didn't like each other. And so a Samaritan comes along and helps this person, despite all the things that could stand between them. And as we know from the story, puts him on his own animal, binds his wounds, takes him to an inn, pays for his care. Jesus ends with his own question. He answers the lawyer's question with a question, a different question, the one Jesus wants to answer. He says, who was a neighbor to this man? The lawyer, again, this guy's excellent. It's another A+. He says, the neighbor to this man was the one who showed him mercy. Specifically, the one who is a neighbor to this man is the one who did not ask the lawyer's question. The priest, certainly familiar with Scripture, just as the lawyer was, might have asked that question, who is my neighbor? Not that guy. Walk across the other side. The Levite, again, familiar with Scripture, as much as this lawyer probably was, knows what he's supposed to do with neighbors, looked at this man on the side of the road, said to himself, who is my neighbor? Not that guy. The Samaritan coming down the road, that guy's definitely not his neighbor. He doesn't have to ask. But he comes down and he helps him. He shows him mercy. From this story, what I take as part of it is that it is never our job to decide who is or who is not our neighbor. If we're asking that question, it's a question Jesus doesn't answer. Does not seem interested in helping us answer. We can certainly justify our answers to ourselves. We're excellent at that. But Jesus is not going to help. Of course, we have biases one way or another. And of course, they make perfect sense to us. We could sit down and explain them to one another and give every rational, seeming reason to justify the things we think about who deserves our mercy and who does not. And we wouldn't agree, but we would all have great justifications ready to go. Some of you are thinking about them right now. You're thinking, oh, Doug, sweet summer child. Some people will just take advantage of you. Some people just don't deserve to be helped. Some people are beyond the pale. Once you're older, you'll understand. Jesus simplifies the question in a very helpful way. Jesus doesn't care what our justifications are. Jesus has no interest whatsoever in how we justify who is and who is not our neighbor. Doesn't care. When we ask that question, he does not dignify it with an answer. Instead, he tells a story. So when we see someone in need, we can ask ourselves, is this person my neighbor? And we can also know for certain that Jesus is not going to answer that question for us. You've all heard the story this morning. You already have the answer.